Welcome to today's myofascial moment. I'm working with the feet again. Now the last time I worked with the feet, I worked with this bent toe self-treatment. Looking to get into some of this tightness here in the front of my feet and in the front of my legs. Now, since I've done that, I've felt quite a bit of strain right here through this big toe on my left foot. Now I forget when I work with this left foot, I sprained my ankle. It's not until I really start to work with this that I remember, oh yeah, it does have trouble. That trouble starts to get uncovered and unraveled over time as I continue to work with my feet. Now today, I'm going to start in this flexed position. Now I've got to shift my weight just a little bit because I want to use body weight to start to get into this area right here. Now, don't worry if you can't flex your toes quite like this. You're going to find your own areas of restriction. Now, with this, I tend to like to have a chair leg behind my heel. Otherwise, I start to use a lot of muscular tension in my leg to keep this position. I don't want to do that. If you remember, good myofascial self-treatment happens when you can slow your breathing, soften in your body, quiet in your mind, and let as much muscular tension ease as you can. So if I'm doing this and working really hard with my muscles back here to keep this position, that's not going to help me. So I get the bend I can and then just rest my heel against this chair leg. Now, almost immediately I can feel a pull right here through my arch. And you might be able to see that my big toe can't quite go completely down. I know from past self-treatment that changes over time. So I'm just going to settle in here, start to quiet in my own mind, soften in my own body, and let gravity start to do the work here with my foot. Now, again, I've been doing this for a while now, and I know from my own work, toes and arches tend to cramp over time. So as I feel that beginning, I do want to soften in my body. I want to make sure I breathe into those tight areas rather than clench and brace and try and get that cramp to stop. You might be able to see that subtle movement of my leg as my toes soften more into the floor, more into this stretch. We call that unwinding. It's a natural self-correcting mechanism that happens in the body as the tissues start to rehydrate, as the ground substance starts to rehydrate, as things start to glide and move more smoothly, and there's more space in the bones and in the joints. The body naturally starts to self-correct. I am starting to put some downward pressure on that knee, not forcing my toes into flexion, but giving some good compression and support so that that little bit of muscular tension here that's holding on can ease. I can feel this opening through all of my toes, giving me some space. I've worn zero drop shoes for years now. My toes used to be quite squashed together. My pinky toe curled quite a bit under as I wore shoes with a very narrow toe box. That's not terribly healthy for feet. We've talked before, the feet are the first point of contact with the ground. Everything else that happens above them are in part directly connected to what happens in the feet. There needs to be some good mobility, some good space for shock absorption through the toes, the tarsals, the heel, all of the bones of the foot, whatever you know them as. There are a lot there, and they should be able to move slightly in relation to each other to absorb shock, to give you a bit of literal spring in your step. When we put feet into shoes. A lot of times you'll hear me refer to shoes as a foot coffin. When we put a foot into a shoe that squeezes it, we lose a lot of our ability to absorb shock through our feet. When the bones of the feet become glued and rigid, imagine you no longer have some ability to absorb shock from that first point of contact. That rigidness, that shock absorption is then has to go up into your leg, your knee, your hips. Somewhere else has to absorb that impact. Or it literally is just an impact into your body. Short term, not so bad. Long term, it will cause hip and knee and back problems, as well as feet problems, ankle problems. So maintaining mobility in my feet, huge priority for me. I can feel that's eased quite a bit through the toes. You might see there's a bit of whiteness right here. There's still quite a restriction there. That might need some direct pressure from either a thumb bee or a neuroball or my own hands a bit later. But for now, I can feel that tightness that was there after the last self-treatment session. That's starting to ease. I'm just testing that as I lean forward just a bit. With a little rotational movement of my leg, I can feel that engage with that outer part of my big toe. But overall, that's feeling, except for this outward rotation. I'm going to stay there for just a minute. Almost like I'm twisting that big toe, except I'm twisting it this way, twisting that big toe, and getting right into this part of my foot, and again, right into here. You might see that starting to get some pressure release there as well. The chair leg is doing some awesome multitasking there, kind of holding my heel in place as I twist through the tarsals, through the bones of the foot right here, kind of twisting around those. I've got my heel kind of anchored against that chair leg. I can feel this affecting up into my knee, not a surprise. The ankle is the opposite end of the bottom of the knee. It literally is all connected. I'm going to come out of that twist slowly. And then just slowly bend. Bend and flex and move just a little bit. Wiggle my toes. That actually feels really good. Now with feet, I do tend to try and do both feet in my same self-care moment. This one's not quite the same. I'm going to work with the same motion because I know they have the same needs. And again, you might notice this doesn't quite go down. It can't quite flex right through here yet. So when I get that motion that these toes will allow, again, I just set myself up with the back of the chair with this chair leg to give me a bit of support. Now these toes are quite a bit more flexible, so I know this is more about a rotational release. So I'm going to go ahead and start moving this leg into a bit of external rotation, anchoring my heel against the chair leg so I can rotate right through here where I know it gets tight. I've already got the ability to flex these toes quite well. Working with a rotational release on this right side. This also tends to work into my heel where that gets a bit stuck sometimes. Again, just a reminder, you never want to force through anything. If you've got limited motion in your hips, in your knees, anywhere in your ankles or your feet, you really want to work with what your body will allow. You might not have this flexion ability in your toes. It will come as you work consistently with myofascial self-treatment. Again, the purpose of these videos, we're looking to demystify, take some of the work and sense of hard out of myofascial self-treatment. If you have 10 to 15 minutes a day, quality of myofascial self-treatment will make a huge difference. Consistency will make a huge difference. If you don't have the quality time, consistency will still make a difference. Don't not do some myofascial treatment every day because you think you don't have time. You can do this sitting in an office chair at lunch. To be honest, that's when I do most of these videos. At lunchtime, at the office. Take off your shoes. Spend 10 to 15 minutes work with your feet. Your body will thank you. Now, as I've been here, I've got quite a bit of almost burning through this area of my foot. Burning, achy, and I'm not holding tension there. I've just got a bit of rotation. I'm holding a rotation there. I'm asking my foot to do something it should be able to do, but it can't at the moment do easily. Kind of got on a soapbox about doing some self-treatment at the office at lunch. Stopped paying attention to what was happening in my own foot. Again, keys to quality myofascial self-treatment are quieting in your mind. You don't want to be making your shopping list right now. Softening in your body. You don't want a lot of muscular tension in your own neck or shoulders as you're trying to hold a position. Chair might not work for you. You might prefer to do this seated on the floor with your knees bent and your feet flat on the floor. You might prefer to do this in standing. I happen to like seated at the moment. Mostly because I can use the chair leg to aid a bit of rotation. And then stay with something for 3 to 5 minutes or longer, gently nudged into an area that's tight or tender. Be curious about what you feel. Oh my goodness, my foot feels really tired. Again, I don't have a lot of muscular tension. I'm starting to feel this twist create a cramp in my calf. Never pleasant, but you've heard me talk about cramping. Spasms. Charlie horses. Breathe. Soften into your body with them. Let that spasm start to do something differently. It's a signal your body's trying to do something it doesn't quite have space for yet. That spasm's eased. I'm going to slowly come out of this rotation. 10, 12 quick minutes, self-treatment. Bend and flex, I can tell you that's easier than the last time I did this. Always, always good. I'll be curious as I take a walk later today what shows up next in my feet. Again, for me, feet are a huge priority. This is my first contact with the ground. I want my toes to be able to move. Your body will thank you. Thanks for joining us. See you next time.